Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Southern Fried Podcast. I'm Rex Nelson, senior editor of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. We appreciate you, as always, for listening to this podcast as we talk to some of the most interesting people in Arkansas. See, Mason, I've already put the pressure on you. You're going to have to be interesting. Mason Ellis, our guest today, noted architect. Really specializes in a lot of historic restoration, which anybody who has read my columns through the years knows that is a real interest of mine, but also a cyclist, and we're going to kind of blend things today. But, you know, Mason reached out to me after a recent podcast in which we talked about Fush Creek and development along the creek. Some of you may have heard that, and what a treasure it really was that it had not been developed, and the fact that it will now be opened up by the Southwest Trail, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But specifically, you reached out to me about the Rose Creek Trail, and I have been back in Little Rock since 1989 when I moved back from Washington, so for 35 years. And I'm not even sure that I knew that creek was named Rose Creek. You talk about a hidden treasure. So I guess start out talking a little bit, because certainly since I didn't know, we can't take for granted that our listeners know. What is Rose Creek? Where does it start? Where does it run? And why is it significant to those of us that live in the Little Rock area?
Sure. So if you've driven on 630, you've most likely passed over Rose Creek, probably without even knowing it. It's it's a pretty small drainage that empties directly into the Arkansas River, and it's basically on the east end of the Capitol View Stiff Station neighborhood, right alongside the railroad tracks there behind the State Capitol complex. It starts the watershed starts up in Hillcrest, and interesting enough, it starts at Central Arkansas Water at Newt Park.
Yeah.
So we say we start off with the best water up there. Comes down through parts of Hillcrest, goes through UAMS, and at UAMS, that's where the creek really starts to form. It flows through Stiff Station neighborhood by Lamar Porterfield. Mm-hmm. It disappears for a while underneath 630. It's been heavily channelized. We actually do a creek walk every year. One of our board members leads it, and you can take a long tunnel ride along the creek to
Oh, wow.
to find
so you
it.
go down into the tunnels.
Yeah, you go down into the tunnels and pop out underneath the railroad tracks and everything. And then it pops out at the back of the State Capitol complex, and from there on, it's more of a natural stream. But then empties into the Arkansas River down near Gill Street, kind of west of the Dillard's headquarters down there. So a lot of people have probably crossed over it on Cantrell 630, but you're right, not a lot of people know about it. Mm-hmm. And it's just a unique opportunity because of its relationship to downtown, to the Arkansas River Trail, and to the Capitol View Stiff Station neighborhoods. There's so many different things that have possibilities because of the creek and the green space around it, but a lot of people just overlook it. So our group, the Rose Creek Initiative, we're really trying to bring those ideas to fruition and work on building the Rose Creek Trail, also completing the Rose Creek Park in a overlooked kind of green space south of 3rd Street, and hopefully build up the Rose Creek Watershed Alliance, where we really start focusing on reducing the amount of trash and litter that people, drop into the streets, gets washed down the storm water and into the creek.
I want to talk for a minute, and then we'll go back to the creek itself, but also in drawing on your vast experience, as I mentioned, in historic restoration. Let's talk about both the Capitol View neighborhood and the Stiff Station neighborhood. Again, I know we've got listeners from outside of Little Rock, so again, kind of describe those two neighborhoods, why they're important, the historic significance of them, and the kind of architecture we see in both the housing and the few commercial structures that are in those neighborhoods.
Sure. Capitol View and Stiff Station kind of were the next ring of neighborhoods west of downtown. There's a lot of beautiful craftsman-style houses in the area. There's also some Spanish Revival houses, colonial revival style, a little mix of architecture, but it's heavily craftsman architecture. And when it was developed, it's
What years basically are most of those?
19 teens to my house is 1930 actually, so about
30,
19
okay.
teens until right up to World War II.
Okay, gotcha. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then Stiff Station, as its names apply, was actually a trolley station before the streetcar began going up Kavanaugh, then Prospect Avenue would go up towards Hillcrest. So it was a trolley stop and a little commercial node developed there at the intersection of Kavanaugh and Markham. So, and it was a very pedestrian-oriented neighborhood then, because everybody was walking or hopping the streetcar, or if you had a horse, riding around that way. But it was very built around people walking and biking, and we're kind of taking that into the Rose Creek Trail project as well, because one of the greatest things about the Arkansas River Trail is just how it connects all up and down the Arkansas River on both sides of the river. But if anybody's biked or walked it, most likely you've put your bike in the back of your car and driven down there to it, or maybe you've ridden on a busy city street or something like that. If you live in a residential area, you can't really get to the river trail. So the Rose Creek Trail, one of the main goals of it is to create a shared use pathway to connect the Capitol Youth Stiff Station back to the Arkansas River Trail. And from there, you can get to the Big Dam Bridge or downtown, North Little Rock, and really kind of bring back that whole pedestrian, concept that the neighborhood was built around.
So you live in Capitol View
I
neighborhood?
do. Well, Stiff Station.
Stiff Station. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's funny because Woodrow is kind of the dividing line, and
exactly.
I'm right on Woodrow and Capitol, and we're right on the west side of it. So I'm saying I'm Stiff Station, but I have lots of friends at Capitol View.
I'm a big proponent also of infill development, and both of those neighborhoods have always struck me, especially with how close to downtown for those who work downtown, have struck me as just still a lot of untapped potential in both neighborhoods.
That's
right
exactly right. I'm also been involved with Studio Maine, which is a local nonprofit that's architects, designers, engineers, and we have our day jobs, and then we kind of come together afterwards and try to figure out how to make Little Rock and North Little Rock a better place. And we did our annual pop-up in Stiff Station in 2018, and that was when we actually closed down a lane in Markham and made it into a 3-lane road, and we tested that scenario for a couple weeks, and we did some pop-up shops in what were empty storefronts then, and really created a vibrant commercial district again. Everybody loved it, and so now all those storefronts are filled up again.
Absolutely,
I think
they
except
are.
one, but we're working on that.
Okay, gotcha.
And the city is working on implementing the road diet along
I
Markham.
was going to say, I recently read that's now going to happen,
Exactly.
isn't it?
And that's going to make such a difference. So you can.
It's going to slow the traffic
Exactly.
down in there. I guess open up bike lanes.
Actually, it won't have bike lanes because we talked about that because Markham is pretty hilly. If you're on a bike,
It is.
it's way better to ride on Capitol Avenue,
Gotcha.
ride up Kavanaugh. But it's going to improve the sidewalks. And right now, if you walk out of Oyster Bar, you feel like you're going to get run over by a car. They're so close, but we're actually going to be able to take more space and have outdoor dining. And
I was going to ask about outdoor dining as an Oyster Bar fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to have
so
that.
it will allow space for outdoor dining along
Yep.
there. Wow, good deal. Good deal. Let some of that cigarette smoke out of people.
Yeah.
You got about 40 years of cigarette smoke
yes.
in there, but that's another story.
Yeah.
That's another story for another day. So let's go back to the Rose Creek Initiative. Who got together? How did you become a formal organization?
Sure. Well, we like to say that the Rose Creek Park is actually over 100 years old. It was first described by landscape architect John Nolan in his 1912 plan for a park system for Little Rock, and he talks about Rose Creek and its unique watershed and all the vegetation that's around it, and how it's so close to the Capitol and connects the river, and how it'd be a great spot for a park.
Do you mind if I quote him
Sure,
here?
absolutely.
I love the quote you
see-
used. You
yeah.
did a piece for the publication Block Street and Building last year. Now, this was, again, John Nolan more than 100 years ago. Quote, "The shallow stream of Rose Creek within a comparatively small area in this section winds through exceedingly varied scenes, now over a pebbly bed surrounded by scattered cypress, now through a meadow with groups of willows, now through a little grove, and now through a rocky ravine of small proportions but much beauty, under a bridge at a point suggestive of a beautiful permanent structure in keeping with surrounding nature, and thence on to its junction with the Arkansas River westward of the Rocky Bluffs. Such natural features are precisely the elements to determine the site of a park, and while it has been impossible to fix any definite areas on the general plan, whatever sections may not actually be required by the railroad may, with particular appropriateness, form connections between the Capitol grounds and the river bluffs. That guy could write, couldn't he?
I've never heard anybody read that so well, too. I was getting chills. So I know, and you can just visualize it the way he writes that.
Yeah.
And there really is, like, with the 630 construction and different things, a lot of it has been channelized and covered up, but there are still some magical spots down there that we're just trying to get people to go check out.
All right. Well, you mentioned an event coming up, another hike. Let's talk about some of your activities. What kind of things do you do on a yearly basis?
Sure. So, like I said, the Rose Creek Park idea is probably over 100 years old, but the Rose Creek Initiative really kind of started forming in the 1990s, I believe, when there was a neighborhood master plan. And then a small group got together informally in 2004 and called themselves the Rose Creek Initiative. And then in 2022, we actually became an official nonprofit 501c3. So we basically meet every month and kind of try to talk about, next steps, either easement acquisitions for the trail, cleanup events. We're going to be participating in the Keep Little Rock Beautiful cleanup event. We do that every year, and that's one of our biggest events. And that's not just cleaning up the park, but also kind of the surrounding neighborhood around there. And we worked with Dr. John Zaneski from UALR and created our own homemade trash boom down there that we've kind of been testing and trying to clean out. It's actually come unattached right now. We've got a work day scheduled to get it all put back together. Those spring rains are kind of rough on it. But, a lot of cleanups, working with Leland Couch at Parks and Rec.
Right.
We've been working with Public Works as well, north of 3rd Street, trying to figure out the best route to get the trail connected back to the Arkansas River Trail. Working with the Arkansas Highway Transportation Department, RDOT, for they're about to do a job on the Cantrell Bridge. Well, that's going to go right where Rose Creek's going to connect. So there's all these different players that we're just always trying to kind of keep tabs on who's on what, and is there any benefit that we can work into another project to make this a reality.
Well, it's really exciting, and it plugs in so well to the other things that we're doing or trying to do in Central Arkansas now. And I talk about, I'm mentioning specifically here the Arkansas River Trail that we have, and then the extremely exciting, and I touched on this when I mentioned Fush Creek, Southwest Trail plan will connect Little Rock all the way to Hot Springs. And I know all cyclists and hikers too are excited about that. Again, for those that might not be familiar, kind of explain what's happening with the Southwest Trail.
Sure. So the Southwest Trail, that one's been going on for a long time, and I was involved with that early on as well. But it's I believe the number varies, but 67-mile plus or minus, depends on who you talk to, multi-use trail that'll connect downtown Little Rock to downtown Hot Springs. And a big part of it will go like behind Central High School, kind of around the south end of Little Rock, and then begin going through Pulaski County, which I believe they already have some funding and secured the right-of-way for their section. Through Saline County, we'll cross the old river bridge on the Saline River that they've been working on restoring for many years now.
Exactly.
And then go through Garland County, connect to the Hot Springs Greenway Trail that's already there existing, and you'll empty out right into Bathhouse Road downtown in Hot Springs. So it's got a lot of possibilities, and this trail will connect directly to that, but it will also connect directly to the residential neighborhood. So, there's a lot of possibilities with people that you see in Northwest Arkansas, people who build neighborhoods around the bike trail, because that is the amenity and that's the type of thing. Even here in Little Rock, the Rockwater development. I mean,
Absolutely.
that has come up because people want to live on a bike trail. I mean, because you can access so many things without getting in your car and stuff like that. So there's a lot of opportunity to do those type of developments in here, and kind of what you're talking about, more commercial development. There's a lot of empty space out there that could be really developed and built around those two trail systems.
And I promise not to go to preaching here, but I write till I'm blue in the face that economic development in the 21st century is no longer attracting factories, which is what economic development pretty well was understood to be in the 20th century in towns around Arkansas. It's about attracting talent. And one of the ways, as you know, that we attract young, talented people is through amenities such as great trail systems.
I don't get to do it as much as I like to, but I will walk to work sometimes from my house in Stiff Station to downtown. It takes me about 30 minutes to get from my front door to the front door of my office. And walking along the trail that we currently have built, which is more of a our group mainly built a footpath.
Gotcha.
We're encouraging more people to use it, because the more people use it, the more likely to get built and the more people will get to experience it. But just starting my day kind of walking through the woods and along a creek, and seeing a blue heron fishing in the morning and getting to walk by the state capitol on my way to the office, it completely transforms your day. So a lot of people like biking to work because they start their day off with exercise, and you just start your day completely different than if you sit in a car for 30 minutes and drive in. So, building a whole neighborhood where people start their day with that type of experience every morning is really something unique that people will want to come to.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, what you're doing at Rose Creek, we mentioned the Southwest Trail and the potential there. There is a lot going on, which excites me as a Little Rock resident. We've also got the activity going west of town, in which you take the Arkansas River Trail. We've got the new developments with the new visitor center and all now at Pinnacle Mountain, and then you've got the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission and the Nature Conservancy involved in both Rattlesnake Ridge and Blue Mountain as you go further west. So a lot of activity going west of town.
Absolutely,
also.
Yeah. And there's so much, and a lot of people know about that, and we're trying to make Rose Creek kind of like a little urban oasis. I mean, it's like I said, not a lot of people know about it, but it's a cool little green space that has a lot of possibility. We have been working with the U of A co-op extension office to try to do a invasive plants removal program on the hillside. There's all sorts of old privet and ivy and nandina bushes from when there was old home sites out there, and you can still see the foundations and stuff, which is interesting. But how to get that established back and the native plants reestablished. Is there a way we can make maybe a rock climbing bouldering wall or something in that park, where if you're downtown working, you could take a quick lunch break and go, do a quick bouldering run or something like that, instead of driving all the way out the climbing center on Bowman, or a short downhill mountain biking course on the steep hillside that we've got the park down there. Maybe you can take a ride at lunch and get a few runs in on that. Just something that kind of creates a natural experience right there, so close to downtown that people can access.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask you to put your other hat on because we've got a few minutes left. And
Sorry, I lost time.
Oh, no. I wanted to do this because I mentioned my interest in historic preservation and your work as an architect for many years now. When I was a boy, and we're talking 50 years or more now ago, when I was a boy, we were very much a tear down state. Tear it down, tear down the old church building and throw up a metal building. And it certainly seems to me, even though, and this is a big picture question, but even though we've got a long way to go, that we have gotten a lot better in the past 20 years or so, certainly here in Arkansas. about identifying structures and saying that's worth saving.
Absolutely, yeah. We lost a lot of structures.
We did lose a
We lost
lot.
so many.
Yeah.
When you go to, I just came back from Oklahoma City, but that city and Tulsa and some surrounding cities, they had urban renewal as well, but they still have a lot of historic structures. We've still got a bunch downtown, but we lost so many. There's so many parking lots.
Oh, block after block, yeah.
And we lost a lot of those commercial streetcar stops that were kind of sprinkled in the residential neighborhood. You can kind of still see remnants of it. And those are great locations that we could get some more commercial development mixed in with residential and kind of rebuild our neighborhoods. But you're right, we're doing a lot better realizing that. And that's a value that you can't get with a new building, and people are starting to realize that value that comes into historic architecture and why it's worth keeping.
Yeah, I particularly worry about the areas of our state that are rapidly losing population, parts of South Arkansas, the Delta, of course. I know there's an effort, for instance, to save the beautiful Presbyterian church at Helena because there's no longer enough people to keep it up anymore due to population losses. My mother's hometown of Des Arc, they took the old Presbyterian church there and turned it into the library, which was a great redo. But I know historic preservationists like you, that particularly has to be a concern in our rural towns around Arkansas that are losing population so quickly.
Absolutely. And I think, a lot of that population that's being lost is looking for opportunities elsewhere. And they're the ones who would most likely realize the opportunity of those historic buildings. And, a lot of the people in these smaller rural towns, oh, that's just that old building downtown. They've known it for their whole lives. And so they don't see it being special. And so it's kind of, there's no one advocating for them. But I think we're starting to see more in like Wynn and in Helena too. You go on Cherry Street and there's some new businesses on Cherry Street in Helena.
Oh, Delta Dirt has just been a godsend. The distillery over there and love the family. It's one of the favorite columns I've written about them. They're now looking at putting a restaurant in. So that could start adding back some critical mass.
And that's going to take people in these communities just saying, what's special about where we live and taking time to invest in it and just going downtown really and just being there and deciding this is a place that's worth keeping and we're saving.
Here in Little Rock, we are taping this right now, sitting in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette building, a historic building itself, once a YMCA many decades ago. But we are sitting here, and I can look out my window from the third story now, and I can see construction fencing up to redo the Boyle building. Yes. And I can see construction fencing up on the same major corner for the technology park expansion. That's incredibly exciting to me when so many downtowns across the country are struggling to see construction fencing up on two sides of that major intersection of Capitol and Main, for instance.
And I'm working on the Tech Park building. WR is doing the renovation, restoration of the exterior on that, and working with CDI contractors. And that's the part of probably one of my favorite parts of that building was getting to explore it and kind of learn the history of it, because we discovered that it was built in 26, but then it was heavily renovated in the 30s, and kind of seeing all the different layers of renovation throughout the building. But it's going to be fantastic once it gets wrapped up. And you're right, it's exciting to see the fencing and the renderings and so many things going on in one intersection down here.
Absolutely. Still, though, and I know you, like me, walk the streets and think of what could be. So much potential. I mean, just on Main alone, KTV, of course, has abandoned the old Worthen Bank building, a fantastic old structure that would make something good. Meanwhile, the tallest building on Main Street, the Donaghy building, remains empty. I keep dreaming that somebody will put apartments or condos in there. So even in downtown Little Rock, still a lot of opportunity.
Absolutely, yep.
How do you interact, and I'm maybe getting out of your area of architecture into financing, but How do you attract the investors? How do you get the capital? How do you sell them on
Well, I
places like
think
that?
it. I mean, and to tie back to Rose Creek. I mean, I think it's the involvement with people that want to make it happen. Like if there's a one or two people that want to make the Donaghy building, into something, nobody's going to financially back that. That's a big risk. But if we, start seeing pop-ups in the bottom storefronts. I mean,
Right.
I would love
Right.
to see a pop-up done at the Donaghy building and put in temporary storefronts there and just see what that building would look like and how it would reactivate that whole street and really get people to think about that. Something like that, local community, whether it's the city or whether it's nonprofits, but just some way to engage that and show the possibility of it. Then you start getting people saying, well, people, or investors saying, well, people are interested in this, and I think I can make this profitable, because there's so much interest behind it. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with Rose Creek is we're going out there and building the trail ourselves and putting up trail markers and talking to these different people. We're putting on park pop-ups, and we do an annual Christmas event. And people are like, oh, there's a whole community that's behind this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to help. I want to get involved. What can I do?
Build it, and they really will come.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
If you
Yeah.
get it done. Yeah, yeah. So, where do you Rose Creek and maybe the surrounding neighborhoods? Where do you see things? If looking down the path 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
I've been working on it for a while, but it takes a while for these types of things, especially if you don't have tons of money, like if you've just got a lot of volunteer support. It happens, but it takes a while. But we're really kind of turning a corner. We've been working with Public Works, and they've got some preliminary engineering drawings for the trail north of 3rd Street. Working with Leland Couch again at Parks and Rec, and we're really kind of getting everything pinned down on the trail south of 3rd Street. I really feel like we're going to have maybe not a finished trail, this year or early next year, but we're at least going to have alignment done, and it's going to be coming very soon. And I think when that happens, you'll start to see new developments in the Capitol View neighborhood where there's a bunch of empty lots right now. And, there could be some great new single-family residential homes that have a bike storage component as a part of that and really market towards that. And all the work that's been going on north of 3rd Street on the hillside there. I mean, that's just an amazing property with views of the Capitol, views of the skyline, direct access to the river trail. Again, it's just kind of realizing that potential for it. So I like to be optimistic. I want to say the trail's going to be connected very soon.
I like optimism too, and I agree with you that starts those dominoes falling. That as you finish the trail, we have a Rose Creek Park, that it really leads to more people wanting to live in Capitol View and wanting to live in Stiff Station, and you start filling up some of those empty residential lots that you were talking about.
And there's areas like this all over Little Rock. I mean, it's not just Rose Creek is this unique whole city, but it just takes some people looking at a weed lot or a little creek drainage or something, going, you know what, we can make this into something special in our community, in our neighborhood. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work, and a lot of people don't have that ability to put all that time and effort into it. So that's the hardest thing, but there's so many chances for that all over kind of around downtown Little Rock in these types of neighborhoods.
Yeah, absolutely. Mason, thank you so much. You got me excited what you're talking about. I love the things you're working on.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm glad to talk to you about it.
All right, Mason Ellis, my guest today. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette.